Hello, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the 14th edition of Highbury Matters. Tonight, I've got another special guest, Al Pong, and we'll be talking about all things Highbury, including the 1991, 1991, and 1991, 92 seasons, if you can understand that. So we're looking back on that. Lots happened in those two seasons, loads, both on and off the field. So hold on a minute, I think I can hear the studs on the old concrete. Be back to you in a couple of minutes. All the best. See you soon. Good evening, Al. How are you?
Melvyn, that is a lovely welcome. I'm very good, thank you. I hope you're well too, mate.
Yeah, we're all smiling. We know why we're smiling, don't we? We'll talk about that tonight. That's for another. I've spoken about that a lot, but we'll talk about that another time. Anyway, You don't get 5 minutes warm up with me, Al. You got to kick off straight away, mate. So I'm going to ask you, when did you first start to support the Arsenal and going to Highbury? And I don't ask myself that at the moment, but I have done over the years. Why the bloody hell have I started supporting the Arsenal?
Well, look, the funny thing is, I was born in the Whittington Hospital, which is probably about as close to being born to near to Highbury as you can get, really, without being born in a house near to the ground,
Yeah.
I guess. So I was born in 1970. So that
Good
makes
year.
me sorry.
Good year for the Arsenal. Good year for the Arsenal.
It was, yeah. I was going to say it was during the middle of that great season.
Yeah.
So for that reason, I guess it's I've always sort of identified with that team. Always been interested in reading about that team. Been lucky enough to get to know one of the players, which is good. And yeah, my dad was an Arsenal fan. He liked Arsenal. I guess growing up, you're at school and all the kids are all supporting different teams, but when I was really young, we moved from Haringey. So we lived, me, my mum and dad, we lived above a shop, believe it or not, in Green Lanes. And then my mum fell pregnant with my sister and we moved to Hackney. And growing up in Hackney, a lot of people supported either one or three or four teams. It was basically Arsenal, Tottenham, West Ham, or Orient. So I started supporting Arsenal. I guess it was really sort of influenced by my dad. It was at that time where Terry Neal had just taken over and he started to develop a good team. Malcolm McDonald, I always say, he was probably the first player I ever had a picture of on my wall. And he was scoring lots of goals. And then, of course, there was Chippy Brady. It was just a phenomenal player for us. Pat Jennings in goal. That whole Irish connection that I loved. Frank Stapleton, David O'Leary, Pat Rice, obviously, who was then the captain. And it was just always wanting to watch as much as I can. I mean, bearing in mind it's different now. I mean, people really, you understand it obviously, Melv, because you've lived through that era. But you only really saw your team occasionally. I mean, you were lucky if you saw them every week, and if you did see them every week, if you didn't go to the games, it was highlights either on Match of the Day or the big match if your team was selected for that evening's.
Oh, the big match.
Game.
The big match. Yeah. Sunday afternoon. You know what a great Sunday. I used to love Sundays, especially if we won on a Saturday, because I used to play football in the morning for my local club, come home, have something to eat, and then I'd watch, I don't know which way around, I think it was the big match with Brian Moore.
Yeah.
Right? And then it was the Persuaders or something like that was on.
Yeah, I think the very first time I remember watching the big match, I think the Persuaders was on before it, or the Protectors, or something like that. Yeah, I'm talking sort of mid-70s. Yeah, it was.
And then go out, listen to the top of the pops on the radio, record a couple of tapes, and go out for an evening. That was a fantastic Sunday for me. Especially
don't forget, I would have had to have been in bed by 9 o'clock, Mel. But yeah, no. So but the lucky thing is at that time, because Arsenal were developing a good side, they were practically on telly every week,
Yeah,
and then we were doing all right. We probably not that great in the league. We were okay. We were always in the top six, but it was really the cup competitions that
yeah,
really generated the interest. And bearing in mind in those days, Liverpool were really the sort of dominant team, and then Nottingham Forest developed a great side as well. We had a very good team, and the FA Cup at that time. I mean, because it was the only one of the only few matches that was shown live, uh, your team, if you did well in the FA Cup, you had as big a profile, if not even bigger profile, sometimes than the teams that were winning the league. So, and of course, Arsenal got to three straight finals. They got to the Cup Winners' Cup final as well, and it was just a really magical time to start supporting the team. So I just watched as much as I could, and then 19 season 80, 81 or 81, 82, I think it was. That was when I started going. A friend of mine, I went with him and his dad because my dad tended to work on a Saturday, and if I'm honest, he probably wasn't that keen on going to matches himself. He loved watching them on telly and always supported them, but wasn't really into sort of going to the ground. And so I started going with a friend, and that it just sort of stemmed from there. And and just going with lots of different friends over the years and watching them as much as I can. And I guess by the time we got to the George Graham era, that was the time I was sort of going every week as much as I could.
yeah. I mean, when you start, you were right when you say we weren't a very good league team. We're okay-ish. We never
Yeah,
thought in our heart of hearts, Al, that we're going to win the league. It was like,
no,
no, forget that.
exactly. Yeah.
We're to a degree make up the numbers, and that sounds a bit
That's right.
rude, but
We
that's
were
what we were
never
doing.
really in the running.
But in
Never
the
really in the
cups,
running.
we was phenomenal in the cups, absolutely phenomenal around then. And as you say, the players you mentioned, I mean, Malcolm McDonald, he was swashbuckling, wasn't he? He was like a comic strip
Yeah.
hero, wasn't he, as a footballer?
Yeah. Yeah.
He was phenomenal. It's a shame his career was cut short
It
in that
was, yeah.
bad knee
I
injury.
remember being really upset when and I remember when he first got injured and he was out, and you just kept hoping he'd come back and come
Yeah,
back and come back. And I think it was probably late 79, 1980. You may know better than me, but they just declared he wasn't going to come back. And I just remember being so disappointed, I just
because he
felt
did
so
rely.
sad for him.
He was a very thick-set footballer, Al, you remember, and
Yeah. Yeah.
pressure on his knee, and he relied on speed. I'm not saying he only had speed, but speed was a very big part of his game. And if
Yeah.
you took that speed away from him, then he was just another
That's right.
footballer. So that
Yeah.
was a
And
shame.
actually, I want to make mention. One of my followers, actually, a lovely lady, Charlotta. She's from Sweden, and she did tell me that he played in Sweden in the leagues over there. And I guess that their league probably wasn't anywhere near as
No.
quick as ours.
Mm.
And he was able to perform to a sort of reasonable standard over there, albeit reduced speed. So he still had it as a player, but obviously that injury must have taken a huge toll on him.
Yeah, of course. I mean, and also you mentioned everyone that was around before or whatever, Liam Brady. That's the name that sticks in everyone's
Yeah.
mind. You know,
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's just
he
so
was, and we
mercurial.
didn't have him for long either. He came through the ranks, but I think he didn't play that many years. Just 4 or 5 years in the first team.
Yeah, that's
He-
right. Yeah, because he was there in the early 70s, but I guess he was still quite young then, wasn't he? When did he
yeah,
become a regular, Mel? Probably what, 74,
4 or 5,
75?
I think 74, 5. Yeah, and he
Yeah,
just tore the place apart. He would take on teams by himself, basically.
yeah.
Fantastic, but we had some great footballers. And before that, even go back to the seven shirt again. The seven shirt with us seems to be special, doesn't it?
It does. Yeah,
Geordie Armstrong. I know he wore 11
yeah. Bless
sometimes,
him.
really, but for me, it's the seven shirt, Geordie Armstrong. I mean,
Yeah, bless him.
he was
And
around.
Jill.
When I was growing up, he was always around. That was it. Geordie Armstrong. He was
Yeah,
a winger. That was it.
yeah. Well, I'm proud to have him as my profile face.
Yes.
Especially for my
Got that.
friend Jill Armstrong, obviously
Oh
is
yeah.
his daughter, who we all follow and love. And
Oh, she's amazing. She is
uh,
amazing.
I know Jill won't mind me saying, but I think Liam used to occasionally babysit her when he was a young player.
Yeah, I
Um,
think that. Yeah, I think that's not done. It's a secret. No, no, I think she's meant. I mean, I said to her, I probably embarrassed her, but in a nice way. I honestly think, and I'm not being biased because when I'm speaking to her, that of all the people that have had statues, you can make a case for loads of footballs. Don't get me wrong, Al. He should, because he was a true he was Arsenal. You know, it was just basically he was there for so long. He did so well. He came back as a coach and trainer.
Yeah.
He
That's
just
how I
and
remember it.
he's just. I've never known anyone to say a bad word against him. I never used to see him getting fouled that much. To be honest with you, he was that type of. I don't know, just something about the guy. And when you think of Arsenal, for me, I know the youngsters won't, obviously. For me, the first thing that comes to mind is someone like Geordie Armstrong. It really is. I know you've got your Tony Adams, but he's got a statue. You've got other players, the Henrys of this world, he's got a statue. You can make as I say, make a case for a load of them. But for me, if there was one that I could pick that hasn't had it, it should be him. But anyway,
Yeah. I mean, he was just a phenomenal amount of energy that he had as well, wasn't there? I mean, whenever I watch sort of old matches back with him playing, it's just incredible the amount of energy he had. And I think he was very unfortunate in terms of England because he at that time didn't. Sir Alf Ramsey preferred not to have someone that was an out and out wide man
he didn't
and
believe in
played
it.
it a bit more narrow, really, didn't he?
Yeah, and what he did, he played Alan Ball, who was a midfielder, wideish, who used to come inside. So that's really,
Yeah.
and he was successful with it, Alf Ramsey. So, you know, it's a bit unlucky. And
Yeah.
also, Al, years ago, if you remember, the England team was basically quite the same week, match after match. They don't do it like they do now. They, you know, in a season, a year rather, you'd have like 30 players involved. You might have 15 that play.
Yeah.
You knew your goalkeeper was. You know, mostly, unless there's an injury, possibly the team nearly picked itself after the manager picked it. You knew that's going to be the team.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. Right. Did you? Where did you go? Did you stand to start with?
So this is another really funny thing that I always remember about the old Highbury. And as soon as I say it, people go, "Oh yeah." Is that I used to go with a friend and his dad, and we would go through the one gate, and it was like 90p to get in or something like that, and the adults would go through another gate. It was at that time, I think it was about 150 or 180. And then if we wanted to go into the North Bank, we used to have to. There used to be like a guard in the sort of what we used to call the little prison, and because they didn't like kids being unaccompanied in the North Bank, you had to be in there with an adult. I'm sure that's correct.
Yeah,
It just seems crazy to think about that now, but yeah, we used to sort of go in with my friend's dad, and then he would go up into the middle and we would go down near the front, right at the front as well. I mean, it just seems crazy now. And that first time when we were behind Pat Jennings' goal and he did that sort of calm wave that Pat used to do, and then just seeing him boot the ball and those massive hands, you know, and even just hearing, I don't even think I'd heard Pat Jennings say anything, or even heard him interviewed or anything like that. But when I heard him call for the ball in that big deep voice, it's like, wow, you know. And then just seeing all the players in the red and white strip. I think they had JVC as a sponsor then. You know, it was just amazing. But yeah, sometimes we would go in the schoolboy. I mean, I think one Tottenham match, I remember we went in the schoolboys because we thought it would be probably a bit safer on that day, you know.
The schoolboys is the one I used to go to when I first started.
Yeah, and actually it was quite a good view from there, really, you know. So
it
you used to go.
was like right by the touchline. It was lovely.
That's right. Yeah, it was a cracking view, and not every club had that, did they? You know, that sort of bit of terracing right at the front of the seats where kids could get a good view. So yeah, I liked going in there, and then as I got older, just graduated back into the North Bank. More you started going with friends. Sometimes I was quite happy going on my own and then coming straight back. And then when we got to sort of the George Graham area, I started going with bigger groups of friends, and we sort of went from going through the North Bank to the Clock End. Funny enough, I mean,
why was that?
Yeah, I think it was just we wanted to be different. Maybe it's because we knew that it was right near where the away fan. I'm not saying that I started any trouble, Mel, but you know, you like to. It's just that thing as a fan, you know, that and doing all of that, you know. So
Al, just one thing. Well, let me show you this. Talk about JVC. That was in the program. That's how the adverts. That was in all the programs on the back page. Sometimes had these adverts of JVC.
And do you remember how expensive those things were as well?
Oh my, they're an arm and they were probably, and
Yeah,
I might be wrong, 300 or 400 quid, I reckon.
yeah,
And in
yeah, and the
today's
rest.
money, that's about 1,500 to 2 grand.
Yeah, yeah, and you normally only saw somebody turn up with those at a wedding or something, or
Yeah, that's
someone's
right. That's it.
21st birthday, or you know.
They never even told the time, did they, Al?
No. But yeah,
God, yeah.
those cameras, gosh, God, I mean that's again another thing. I mean, that JVC sponsorship was such a sexy thing for such a traditional
Yeah,
club.
yeah, very much so. Yeah, and yeah, it was. It was an amazing thing. And my the funny thing is, we got married, and we on the same day as this other couple, and we went on the honeymoon together. Just happened to meet them, and they said, and we never had our wedding videoed. It was when the videos all started for weddings, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But they did, and they said, "Oh, we keep in touch." And they gave us a call a few weeks later when we got back from honeymoon. They go, "Right, we've got our video back. Might be a month or two late when they got it back." So we went round there. Well, they used to be big old things for weddings. These videos, you know what I mean? They were like on the shoulder. It was like, well, the geezer who took their video. I hope they're not listening. He obviously had a limp. He had a limp out because it was like the whole time going up and down, up and down, up. And we're sitting there trying not to say anything, going, "Oh, very nice, very
Camera
nice." It was
hopping.
like, oh my god. Honestly, nowadays it's all balanced, isn't it? Unless she's got this
Yeah.
special thing that can balance it.
Well,
And that's what
nowadays
it's
you
like.
could get a better picture on your telephone.
I know. Yeah, exactly,
It's
exactly.
just mad, yeah. But
So you mentioned Malcolm McDonald. Would you say, was that your first like a hero Arsenal supporter?
him and Liam Brady, I think, were the first two heroes. The only thing I'll say about Malcolm McDonald is just the goal scoring.
Yeah,
It's
man, he's mad.
just that running through, and also the way. Be funny if he was listening to this, wouldn't it? But the way he just used to claim goals that
Oh, what about
weren't even
Orient in the FA
was
Cup?
it Orient? Where was
Orient
it?
in the
Yeah,
FA
with the
Cup.
Orient,
Yeah,
which is the first. I think it's probably the first FA Cup semi-final I can remember watching, and he hit this ball which was going wide and flew in. I think one of them actually flew off Glenn Roeder, and he put his hands up in the air as if he'd just sort of blasted the ball straight in. I mean, but to him, it's like I think I heard him interviewed. To him, it's just he wanted to score as many as he could. I think he kind of upset Frank Stapleton once or twice by sort of touching him ones that Frank
yeah, yeah, yeah.
had hit.
Yeah.
But
The thing,
I just loved that goal scoring machine thing about him. I mean, there was a game, and again, I still remember it against Sheffield United away. I think that was cup, and he
was that a
was
6-1? Was it 6-1 or something? Was that a
yeah,
silly one?
something like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
but he was just rampaging through
When
the
he was on
Sheffield
his
United
game,
team.
Al, when he was on his game, he was unstoppable. When he was on
Yeah,
his
yeah,
game.
and I was really sorry I never got to see him play live. It was just before I started going regularly. So Um, yeah, yeah, and
I
then
mean,
shame really that he went to. Funny enough, because Fulham are playing now, aren't they? In the FA Cup, he went and managed them and did all right initially, but didn't quite get them up. And then, unfortunately, things went wrong from the following season. To be honest, effectively he lost the game. I mean, I know he's done a lot of punditry over the years, particularly up in the northeast, but it was a pity that he didn't stay longer as a manager.
yeah, for fans that don't know, he was worshipped up in Newcastle, wasn't he?
Yeah.
He was
Yeah,
the
absolutely. I mean,
man.
again, before my time, but I do know that. In fact,
He,
I've spoken to people from that part of the world who remember watching him play, and it was just awesome. Didn't he score a hat trick on his debut for Newcastle as well against Liverpool? I think.
I think he did, and also
Someone
he scored a
correct me.
hat trick for Arsenal against Newcastle.
Yeah.
First time we played
Yes.
them.
Yes.
That was on the
76.
ice,
Yeah.
though. That was on ice, dancing on ice. That game, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
amazing.
And Motti, bless him, God rest his
Oh
soul,
yeah,
with that famous line, and Super Mac bites the hand that used to feed him.
yeah, oh yeah. God,
But
yeah,
that was one of his absolute. I mean, along with look at that with Liam Brady. I mean, that was one of Motty's best ones. But yeah, no, I mean, I loved Liam Brady as well, obviously because of all the skill and just that innate sense of knowing where everybody was and where the goal was and all that, But I guess as a youngster, it was just I just love seeing goal scorers,
yes,
and
yeah,
he was. Malcolm, I always say, was like the first real hero. And I loved Liam as well. But then again, I just thought it was so sad that we lost him when we did, didn't we? Like you say, he wasn't really, you know, it's a shame
It
he
was.
couldn't have been there for another 5 or even 10 years.
Oh, I was so sad when he signed for Juventus, and it was. Oh, and I saw him play. I went to White Hart Lane. There was a testimonial for Steve Burtonshaw, the Spurs manager, and he was in, one of the
Keith
teams.
Birkinshaw, was it?
Keith,
Or,
sorry,
yeah,
Keith.
Keith Birkinshaw, yeah.
Edit it, please. Edit. And and
You'll get them
yeah,
all on Twitter later because they all do, get anything wrong, just
and he played, and I was sitting there, and I thought, oh my god, he was amazing. And they had, I think Maradona might have played that day. All the, all the greats, and it was just like wonderful. And I was so excited to watch him play, even though it wasn't in an Arsenal shirt. And the Spurs fans, he was top quality. I suppose because he wasn't wearing an Arsenal shirt at the time, I was singing "Sign Him Up" because he was so good. You know what I mean? That hurt me. That hurt me. That did. Double hurt that was. But it was, as I say, fantastic. Now, I know we're covering 2 seasons, Al, but is there any other special apart from that? We could touch on that shortly. Other matches or special moments that mean Highbury was something special to you? Any matches or things that happen at Highbury? Or things you know about the ground that are different to other grounds that you went to over your years?
Well, I mean, the ground, it just speaks for itself, doesn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
it's, I keep a picture of the ground right in front of me. It's on my desk because I just love it so much. I mean, that building, it's just,
I've
the
got
fact it's all
similar
still
one.
there.
I've got a similar one. If you can see that, Al.
Oh, that's much better than mine. Is that one of Ruth Beck's?
Yes, she's fantastic. Look at that. That's
Ruth is
brilliant.
I'm going to have a chat with Ruth about getting one of those. I think
Oh, they're
get one
fantastic.
for this study. Yeah, yeah. But
She's fantastic.
it's just an amazing stadium, and it's so well known around the world. The marble halls and the Art Deco, and it stood the test of time. I mean, it was sad that we had to move. It's one of I don't wish to be smart, but I do kind of think it was inevitable once we went to an all-seater because when the Premier League kicked off, we were just selling out every time, and obviously for financial reasons, the club had to move. But it's great that the ground is still there, and and every time I used to go up there in the early 80s, it's just that walking up Avenel, walking up is it Conewood Road? Whichever road it is where the Gunners pub is, that particular road there,
Yeah.
and you see the ground. I mean,
Oh,
it's
it's
just
fabulous. Fabulous.
fantastic, just that
You
buzz.
get
And
a
even
feeling,
now,
don't
I
you?
still get it.
You
You
get a
know,
feeling. You get a feeling.
absolutely, yeah. And then the ground sort of, we lost the old North Bank, and they built the new stand, and they built it within keeping with the rest of the stadium, which was very clever. Obviously the clock end had been redeveloped with the directors' boxes and everything, and then they built that new stand, and it just remained. In fact, if anything, it became an even better stadium.
Oh, it was.
So
It was fantastic. But to me, those 2 stands opposite each other, East and West Stand, they were so iconic. They were so special. And I used to, luckily, my uncle took me. That's the reason I became an Arsenal supporter. My uncle who lived with us took me. I couldn't become anything else. Though he lived in Ilford, which is really a West Ham place.
yeah.
It was. I had to be Arsenal. I'd been kicked out of the house. Thank God that never happened. I used to go when I was young. About before I went to the schoolboys enclosure, I was too young to go there by myself. So they used to put me over the top, give the geezer a couple of shillings or whatever, and the turnstile, put me over, and I used to sit on my father's lap or something, watch the game. But walking up those stairs, solid concrete stairs of Highbury, it was like going in someone's home.
Amazing.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
It was, wasn't it? The feeling as well. And before you went through the thing, to see the pitch, you walk through, block whatever it was, and you go through, and all of a sudden the green pitch hits you. Because everything years ago out was black and white, like television, wasn't it? When I was growing up, it was all bloody black and white. I never saw. My first time of seeing Wembley grass, I suppose, was when Man City played Leicester in the FA Cup.
Oh right, yes. Is that 69?
8-9 it was. Because Match of the Day and all that was in black and white.
Yeah, yeah,
So you
yeah.
didn't get the idea, and the pitches were rubbish then anyway, Al, weren't they? So it was, but
Yeah,
going up
because I
early
mean, one
on,
thing I would say is in the later years, the Highbury pitch got a lot better because
oh,
in the early
fantastic.
'80s it wasn't great.
No,
I have to say it was quite bumpy and I know they had undersoil heating, but I'm not sure it was as effective as it became in later years.
games were
But
still called
nonetheless,
off, Al. Games were still called off when it
yeah,
snowed,
they
weren't
were.
they?
Yeah,
I know
yeah, they
some of it
were.
was because of the surrounding area, but
Yeah.
sometimes I went to a game. I think it was Southampton or Sheffield Wednesday. I think it was Southampton when no, I think Sheffield Wednesday, where half time the game got called off.
Really?
Yeah,
Gosh,
we're winning
blimey.
1-0, and I think we were wearing red shorts because everything was white.
Yeah, yeah.
So we were wearing red, and yeah, it got called off. So it wasn't
Oh,
that
wow.
effective, like you say.
Well, the thing I remember about Sheffield Wednesday in that era was poor Pat Jennings getting absolutely snowballed by them at their ground at Hillsborough. I think it was a cup tie, and he was having to dodge all these snowballs. I think it got repeated a couple of years ago. It was so funny seeing that poor Pat getting all these snowballs lobbed at him. You know. But did you want me to talk about sort of early games before we come to those two? Because
Yeah,
I mean,
any games that you've like stick in your memory, you go, oh my god, I went to this game, and for certain reason I remember it like it was yesterday. Any games that stick out at Highbury, obviously.
I think the best in that pre-George Graham era, one of the best atmospheres, one of the best Arsenal performances, I would say, was when we beat Tottenham 3-2. And we had Charlie Nicholas and we had Tony Woodcock.
Ah,
David O'Leary was with us definitely then. Who was playing in goal? Would it have been George Wood or would Lukic had taken his place by then? But it was a phenomenal performance because, quite frankly, at that time, you could argue that Spurs on paper had a better team than us. In fact, they went on to win the UEFA Cup. They'd won the FA Cup twice. They were probably a little bit more in the running for the league than we
yeah,
were for sort of 2 or 3 years. And we beat them 3-2, and the atmosphere was absolutely electric. And yours truly over here couldn't get into the North Bank. Thought, oh well, I'll try and get into the clock. I'll try and get in through the clock end and get into the schoolboys on that
yeah,
side. And of course, I couldn't get down there, could I? So I had to stay in that. In fact, it's that corner of the ground. You see your backdrop of the east stand there. It used to be that corner
yeah,
where the clock end used to go round. I
yeah.
ended up standing there right by the fence, looking into the east stand, and there were a few Arsenal guys with me. There were a couple of Irish fellas who had been on the sauce, and a couple of English guys as well. They'd been on the sauce. But they looked up. That, to be fair, I mean, I didn't say a lot to each other, but I knew that if anything happened, that they were behind me. I was going to be fine. And every time we scored, we still cheered. Nothing happened to us, but I just remember the Tottenham fans, a few of them sort of going through the railings and screaming at some of the Arsenal fans cheering in the lower tier, just sort of, and we're just standing there, just laughing our heads off. Nothing happened to me at all. I mean, but yeah, that was a cracking game. I mean, Tony Woodcock, I remember sort of him charging up, going on the run and hitting this. I think it was the third goal, and it was a great goal. Charlie Nicholas scored that day as well. I mean,
Was was Charlie's goal, Al? Was that the one where he dribbled past about three or four
that's right,
Spurs
yeah,
defenders?
and
That
and
was an
and, and
amazing
and he
goal.
put it
That was slow
past.
motion.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
was in slow motion. That goal for me.
Can't remember if it was Ray Clements or Tony Parks in goal, but yeah, it was like slow motion, and the ball sort of, again, it just
Yes,
underlines the pitch. It sort
yeah,
of
bubbled
bobbled
in.
away into the
Yeah,
corner. I mean, it was, yeah, no, Charlie was a tremendous talent. I mean, I always say with Charlie Nicholas that if he would have been playing in the early Arsene Wenger era, he would have been fine. I think playing in that Arsenal team at the time, it was difficult for him. I mean, it's just the way we played. I don't think suited his natural talents. But having said that, I mean, he was still a big hero to us, and he had that funny knack of scoring on every big game, whether it
yeah.
was Tottenham, whether it was Manchester United,
Liverpool in the League
whether
Cup.
Liverpool, yeah, obviously at Wembley as well. Just the big game, he just seemed to be able to produce it, and he scored some great goals. I remember one goal against Chelsea. It was right at the end of the season. It was that season when we got knocked out by York in the FA Cup. And there was just endless singing because I think a lot of the fans really were so fed up by the end of the season. And we beat Chelsea 2-0, and he scored this goal, which he chipped over the goalkeeper. And it just, I mean, there was probably only about 25, 30,000 there, but the crowd just went wild. I mean, and he's still loved to this day. He was
Oh, yeah.
still, he's always nice about the club. And,
Oh, he's very respectful. I think,
yeah,
Al, with Charlie, though, I think his days were numbered when George Graham come in to
yeah,
become manager. Because
yeah.
George Graham liked players that would give 100%, not give out, he did a lot of defensive work. Though you're a forward, coming back, and that wasn't Charlie's game.
It wasn't,
Charlie
no.
would pick up the ball deep in his own half, if maybe, and run with the ball and then get into the box. He wasn't the type of guy to tackle back.
He wasn't,
George
no.
liked all that, so he was never going to
He was
win
never,
any
yeah,
balls with
never going to be,
Graham.
yeah, he was never going to be George's player. I mean,
No.
Arsene Wenger would have forgiven him for that and probably have made sure that he'd have a Lauren or someone behind him that
Yes.
somebody in midfield that would protect him from that. But yeah, because George, he'd made his mind up straight away, hadn't he, that he wasn't his player. And even when we won the League Cup, the Littlewoods Cup as it was then, and George, I remember watching that interview afterwards where George was asked about Charlie. It might even have been Bob Wilson that interviewed him, and you could tell that George's praise was begrudging, and
Through gritted teeth.
yeah, it was, he just wasn't his player. It was a shame. But no, we saw lots of good stuff from Charlie over the years. I remember his first game against Luton. I was there. I was in the schoolboys.
2-1,
Funny enough.
wasn't it? 2-1.
Yeah, was it 2-1? Yeah. And yeah, it's just
He was
just
a
a
so
pity.
exciting player.
Yeah,
What an
yeah,
exciting
yeah.
player.
It was a crowd pleaser, wasn't he?
Yeah. Oh, big time. Big time. Yeah. I mean, he came down to London. He could have got to Man United, who were better than us at the time, in all fairness.
They were,
Could have got
yeah.
to Liverpool, who were much better than us at the time.
Yeah, I mean,
I think it was London, wasn't it? The London Lights.
I think it was partly that. Yeah, I think it was the London thing. I think also, I don't know if he was here, he'd probably disagree with me, Charlie. But he probably felt that he was going to be the sort of talisman at Arsenal, whereas at Liverpool
Yes.
he would have been one of a number of stars, and it would have been a little bit more competitive in terms of playing week in, week out. Yeah, I just, yeah, I mean, I think London swayed him in the end.
But what you say, Al, if you remember, Liverpool, I don't know if they did it in the 80s as well, but they definitely did it in the 60s and 70s. They used to buy the best players at the end of the season from another club, and they never used to play them straight away. Sometimes they might stick them in the reserves for a year.
That's right, yeah.
To learn
yeah.
the Liverpool way.
Yeah.
It was conveyor belt. And I used to think, what's going to happen? Liverpool will win the league every season in my lifetime.
Yeah.
I've got to, because every year, as I say, they kept buying the best players that from other teams. Everyone wanted to play for Liverpool, so they knew it was successful. It was a, catch-22, and they were just a well-run club.
Well, it's an amazing operation, wasn't it? I mean, it wasn't just the managers, Paisley, Fagan, Dalgley, but it's the people they had behind them as well. There's just so much trust
the boot room,
between
they used
them.
to call it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and the knowledge, all that knowledge about players and sort of, and they never really changed their style over in that time, did they? It was all pass and move, which it may well have suited Charlie, but I think it would have been really competitive in terms, so many good players, and could he have broken that Dalglish Rush combo?
No way.
No,
No way.
Wouldn't have, would he? I don't think.
I don't think so. He'd have been another super sub, wouldn't he? At best.
Possibly, yeah. I mean, the comparison would be someone like Paul, because Paul Walsh was at Liverpool, wasn't he?
That's right.
He
was a decent
and he didn't always
player.
play. He was a good player. Yeah, he may well have won the odd league title medal, but he wasn't a regular at Liverpool.
No.
Well, not that I remember anyway.
Right, let's go about the seasons now. Just have a little down memory lane for the seasons. 1991, so much happened. Bloody hell. We actually we won the league. We know that.
Yeah.
Apart from, in spite of rather, we had our captain in went inside for 2 months for
Yes,
drunken
yes.
driving.
Dear old
He
Tony.
got 4, but only did 2. We had 2 points deducted because away to Man United, he beat them 1-0 from a Limpar corner. He directly in the corner. I think it was a bit of a melee anyway.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
21-man brawl.
yeah.
We got 2
Players
points
running from all
deducted.
sides to go and join in, as I remember.
Yeah.
It was so funny watching it. But yeah, I
So
mean
we
that
lost
was a
2
bit
points.
early Fergie era as well, wasn't it?
That's right. Yeah. So that was that. And we won the title, even though that all went on, we lost the 2 points, not without Adams. We won the title by 7 points, and it was Liverpool who were our rivals. We actually took on Liverpool and beat them again because we beat them 2 years earlier.
That's
and
right.
one of my favourite games that season, I watched it live on, would it have been Sky then? 91? I watched
ITV.
it
ITV
on
would have been the
ITV,
days of ITV, and it would have been presented by a man who I'm pleased to say follows me, Elton Wellesby. I follow him back.
Well, Wellesby,
Elton
really? Oh,
Wellesby,
yeah, I remember
yes,
him.
yeah,
Very
yeah.
good he
He
was.
was the
Very good.
ITV face of football in those days, and in fact, he was the host when we won the league at Anfield as well. We had Bobby
Oh,
Robson
right.
as his guest. But
Elton Wellesby, cool. That brings me
yeah,
back a few memories.
yeah,
But that game at Anfield, I don't know if you remember it, years ago, it was normally 2 teams out of 2, very rarely 3 teams could win the
that's
league.
right. Yeah, yeah.
You know, it was either Liverpool, Man United, Man United, Liverpool. I'm sorry, Liverpool, Man United, Arsenal, Arsenal, Liverpool. It was that?
That's right. Yeah,
And we weren't in the mix that many times, but that's what the mix was like.
yeah, yeah.
And this season, everyone knew it was Liverpool or Arsenal.
Mm.
We went up to Anfield, and it was 0-0 for a lot of the game. And in the 60th third minute, whatever it was, Paul Merson did a 1-2 from his own half with Alan Smith. Do you remember it?
Yeah.
And he ran on just Grobbler to beat, and he flicked it at the outside of his foot, and it slowly went in the far post.
That's
He gave
right.
it the old like that, Merson.
Yeah.
Beyond it, like one go.
Yeah.
That when we won that game, you thought, "This is it. We're going to win it this year."
Yeah, it did feel that way. It did feel that
didn't
way.
it?
But
Amazing,
if I remember
amazing.
rightly, the first half was a great rearguard action. Didn't Liverpool have a fair few chances? And I think David Seaman made a couple of very good saves in that game.
Well, that was the season we bought Seaman. We bought Anders Limpar.
Yeah.
We bought, I don't know when we bought. Must have bought him when Adams was going inside. We bought Linnigan, who did
it's the
very
three
well.
of them, wasn't it? Linnigan, Limpar, and Seaman. Yeah.
Yeah, that was great.
David Seaman just became, one of our greatest ever goalkeepers.
What a buy.
He was a tremendous buy.
When we bought him, some Arsenal fans were going, "Yeah, but we had the goalkeeper that went to Leeds,
John Lukic." Yeah,
very good goalkeeper.
We bought him from Leeds, and then he went back to Leeds, didn't he?
That's it. And people going, "But he was a very good goalkeeper." But I remember we played QPR. I think it was an FA Cup time, might have been a year or so before. And I think it was 0-0 the game. The only reason it was 0-0, of course, Seaman was in goal for QPR. We peppered him, and he was everywhere. Yeah. He was like he owned the goal. You know, some goalkeepers own it, and he was owning it that day. And when we
did that go to a replay and we got beat?
Yeah.
And guess who scored? Wasn't that Kenny Sansom?
I don't know.
I think it was.
Really?
Someone out there will know. I'm sure it was Kenny Sansom. I think Kenny had gone to QPR by then. Gary Lawrence. I tell you, Gary Lawrence will know. He'll know. He'll know
Gary
straight
knows
away. Gary is unbeatable. He can't be beaten when it comes to Arsenal.
Loki's in the chat tonight. What did he do? What did he say he's doing here, Kat? Is he saying we stood?
We stood on the crash bars, and it makes you wonder how many of us stood next to each other back then and didn't have a clue that we'd know each other many years.
Yes, yeah.
That's so true. Yeah. God. Lukic was in goal against Tottenham, but only because Jennings was injured. Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, I thought it might have been. Yeah, I think George would have gone by then. Poor George, he didn't really take over from Pat, did he?
No, he came from, I think, Everton. We bought
Everton. Yeah.
Can I tell you a little story about that? Go
on.
When we bought him, this is. I hope I'm not talking out of. I should be saying,
go on, Melv.
Here we go. Here we go. Right. I've got it from a good source, a good OK source. When we bought him, what you used to get the manager, one or two of the directors around the desk. He might have had a representative years ago. They didn't normally, but he might have had anyway. He got in the chair. The secretary of Arsenal handed him the contract, and he said, "Right, you happy? Look at it. You happy?" He goes, "Yeah." Well, can you sign there then, please? So what did he do, George Wood? He took his glasses out of his pocket. I never knew he wore glasses.
Wow.
And that's yeah. He went right, and they all looked like, "Oh my god,
Oh,
we didn't check that."
I'd never heard that before, actually. I don't
Yeah,
think I've heard that one.
That's
Gosh. He
yeah.
played for Scotland a few times as well, didn't he?
Did he? I didn't know that. No.
I don't think many times, because I think that was when Ruff was the main holder of the jersey, and then
I
I think
think he might have
Baton
played in
afterwards.
Goal when we got beat 5-0 by Spurs at White Hart Lane. I think he might
I
have been the
think he
goalkeeper.
probably did. Yeah, that might
I
have been
went to
one of
that
his
game.
last
It was
ones.
like, oh, get me
Yeah.
out of here.
Didn't Alan Brazil got a couple for Tottenham then as well, didn't he?
And the left back, who was the manager of always number 2,
Houghton?
Houghton.
Was
Yeah,
did
he
Houghton
scored.
get one that day,
And I
Josh?
think Gibson got one. Terry Gibson, I think, got one as well.
Wow. It's
Oh,
because that game never got. I don't think it got televised, did it? It wasn't on Match of the Day or Big
no, it
Match or
wasn't.
anything.
No.
So it's not one of them that sticks in the mind for me. But
It is for me. I still got the scars, but that game was just before our semi-final. I think we played in the semi-final of the FA Cup that year.
yeah,
We
got
That's
beat
my
in the.
excuse anyway.
We got
But
beaten 2 semi-finals that season, didn't we? By the same team.
was that Man United?
Yeah.
They beat us in the FA Cup, I remember.
Yeah, I think in the two-legged, what was then the Milk Cup semi. I think
Oh
they beat us.
yes.
Yeah.
Well, also a couple of games at Highbury. I remember that season when we beat Villa 5-0.
Yeah, I was at that game.
Kevin Campbell got a couple. So did Smith.
Yeah.
Do you
I
know
was at
who?
that game.
Do you know who's played? I don't know if I told you. Do you know who played in goal for Villa?
Yes, I do remember. Well, I think wouldn't
The goalie
Spinker
got injured.
played originally, yeah, and then David Platt came in and took over for him. And the irony of irony, there wasn't a spare goalie top. Didn't he end up wearing an Arsenal goalkeeper's top?
I think he did. Yeah, well, an Arsenal
Yeah,
one that was too big
yeah,
for him.
that's right. Yeah, it
And
looked ridiculous. Isn't it? I mean, it's
I
funny
don't
because he
think
wasn't the tallest, was he, Platt? And
that's
then
what I
they
mean.
ended
He
up
didn't look
putting him in
right,
goal.
did he? Al? He didn't look right
No.
playing in goal. But we weren't like it wasn't 0-0 when he went in goal. I think we're 3 or 4 up anyway.
I think we're already 3-0 up. Yeah. But I mean, the thing is, the thing about Villa was the season before they had been runners up. They'd pushed Liverpool. Well, I think in the end Liverpool were comfortable winners, but they did push Liverpool up for a lot of that season. I think that was probably one of the nearest times that Atkinson had come to winning the league. So they weren't a bad team. And then Platt, of course, off the back of Italia '90, he had another season at Villa, and then he went to Italy, didn't he?
Is it Sampdoria? Was it? Or Bari? Was it? No, Sampdoria, I think it was, wasn't it?
I know he played for Sampdoria, but I don't know if that was where he went to originally. I think it might have been Bari first, then Juventus, and then Sampdoria. I think it was.
Right.
Might want to check that. Could be wrong, but yeah, I do remember him playing in goal. I do remember smashing Villa, and I do remember being in the clock end. And me and a few mates, we turned around and we saw the then Prime Minister John Major in a director's box, and you could imagine it. Everybody just starts singing, "We hate Chelsea and we hate Chelsea." John Major just sat there calmly. He just sat there. He just ignored it. He just ignored everything. And the funny thing is, after each goal went in, because they had the TV coverage in the director's box, him and the guys that were with him were every time the goals were going in, were looking at the replays. Funnily enough, the last time I saw John Major was not that long ago, because Surrey County Cricket Club is not far from where I live, and he was celebrating our Surrey's county championship victory.
Yeah, he's a big cricket fan. I know he's a big cricket fan. I had
Yes,
some bad
yes,
memories
yeah.
at Highbury that year. Did you go to the League Cup when Man United beat us 6-2?
Yes, I was at that game, and I worked with a Man United fan at the time. This was when I was a civil servant, and the next day, he just kept giving it to me the whole time about 6-2, 6-2. Lee Sharp had, I think, have got a hat trick.
That he
You
did,
know,
yeah,
it
yeah,
just they just ran away with it, and it wasn't it. I think again, I think ITV showed it live. I think that night, if not, it might have been highlights on what was Midweek Sports Special or whatever.
yeah.
But yes, yes, I do remember that experience. I must admit, I can't remember much of the game. I do remember that Sharp scored a magnificent shot, which sort I think just curled straight into the corner. You know,
He never quite. I know he did well, but he never made it at United like all the other youngsters. For
not like
some
the
reason,
others
he
did.
fell off the.
No,
He fell off the. Just fell off the side, didn't he? Really, because he
no,
he had so much talent.
he had a
I think
lot
he
of
went to
talent.
Leeds. It never quite happened for him, which was a
Well, if
shame.
anything, I think Sharp was probably more confident than Ryan Giggs at
Yes,
that time. I mean,
yes,
Giggs
yeah,
was, there was no doubt he had talent too, but Sharp probably was a bit more sort of cocky and confident
yeah,
and, was shining at that time. I mean, I think 91 might have been just before Giggs had sort of really come into the first team. But certainly, if you looked at the two players when they first came in, Sharp was probably the more confident one. But Giggs, ended up being the one that picked up more medals, had fantastic moments. One, of course, which we, again, United fans like to remind us about every so
yeah.
often, but, we don't want to talk about a
No,
certain game at Villa Park,
no,
do we?
no, we don't. Also, talk about bad games. I went away that year when we played Chelsea. You've got to remember that we only lost one
Yeah.
league game that year.
Yeah, which is
We
against
were
Chelsea.
nearly
Yeah.
the invincible. Well, I think we played second half without a centre half.
Yeah.
We
Yeah,
had a lot
there
of
was some.
injuries.
I couldn't remember what it was. I just remember something in our formation just changed, and we
Yeah,
lost that game. Yeah, I mean, who
2-1.
scored for us? Was that Alan
Smith
Smith?
near the end.
Yeah, it
We
was,
were 2
wasn't it?
nil
Yeah,
down. Alan Smith
yeah,
got
good
one
old
near the end.
Smudge.
It's horrible that. And but then we come. That was a strange year because not only with Adams going, going inside, but Liverpool, who were our main rivals, February, end of Feb, Dalglish resigned. It's a strange thing. I mean, he wasn't under any pressure football wise. I know they got beat by Everton in the cup, but surely that's not enough to push you over the edge, is it?
I, I mean, they talk about this thing with mental health where you can have delayed trauma or whatever, um, and maybe what we didn't see up front was he was probably still suffering from the everything that had gone on with Hillsborough and the pressure of running that
Yeah,
club.
yeah,
Um, I do think there were probably some issues within the team at the time. It was probably that period where certain players were getting on a bit, and he was starting to have to make tough decisions. Um, I remember the game where we played them at Highbury, and I think they were top. If they weren't top, then there wasn't much between us and them. And Dalglish played this formation, which to this day I don't understand. It was just so defensive, and we smashed them 3-0. Um, it just seemed really odd. In fact, wasn't that might have been the game where Peter Beardsley was up in the stand, sort of watching the game, rather than he wasn't even named as a sub, and that seemed odd
really.
because Beardsley was one of their, I'm sure, was one of their best players.
Oh, he was
Um,
fabulous, Peter Beardsley. What a footballer! Oh,
yeah, tremendous footballer. Um, so I think there might. What I'm trying to say is, I think there might have been things going on behind the scenes. Obviously, getting knocked out by Everton probably wouldn't have helped, but I think it was more than just that game, that fixture.
we won the league that season. Obviously, Spurs beat us in the semi-final. We'll swerve that one a little bit,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
we scored 74 goals out and only
yeah.
let in I think 18 league goals.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
I mean,
amazing.
they always well, I mean, even then they sort of criticised us for not being the most exciting. But some of the football we play, I mean, the football we played in 88, 89 was good. 1991, I thought was a strong, actually thought was a stronger side,
Really,
and
yeah,
actually with Limpar in it as well. Probably like I think you said at the weekend, maybe a little bit more flair, if anything.
yeah, very much so. Yeah,
You know. Um, so I just thought we had. I mean, we were talking about Liverpool and everything that was going on there, but ultimately we had a stronger team that season. We moved on from 2 years previously. Whereas Liverpool probably were starting to go through that transition. In fact, wasn't 1988, 89, 90 was their last league title until the one that Klopp won
That's
a
it.
couple of
Yeah,
years ago,
yeah.
you know,
We
after so much dominance.
talk about carnival days out. I remember going to the when we went to play Man United at home, knowing we'd already won the
That's
league.
right. Yeah.
On that day in the morning, I think Liverpool played Nottingham Forest. I think Forest beat them. That means
Yeah.
we had to
Remember
win the
that. Yeah.
league.
Yeah.
And it was like it's a nice weather, May times, lovely weather. Well, you can't always count it over here, but it was nice
Yeah.
weather.
Yeah.
Everyone's relaxed. You
That's
go
right.
in, and we beat. They gave us a little, they made a tunnel
Guard of
for us.
honor. Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
That's it, guard of honour, and we won three. I think we're 3-0 up. Smith got a hat trick, and then they scored near the end, which everyone was upset about because of our record of not letting in goals.
That's right.
You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
it was like, as I say, carnival time. It was
Yeah.
fantastic feeling. You wouldn't have to bite your nails or anything. We just sit there. We
That's
are the
right.
champions. Get on with it. Lovely.
It
And then
might
the
not have
next
been. It might not have been 6-2 like they did us, but the fact that we had the league title,
Oh
that
yeah,
meant far
wouldn't
more.
swap it. Wouldn't swap it.
Wouldn't
Obviously,
swap
wouldn't
it.
swap
No,
it.
exactly.
And
Exactly.
then the next home game we played was Coventry.
Oh yeah.
We won
That
it.
that was a proper
That was
carnival.
six
That was.
one, wasn't it? 6-1 was it? I've got it
Yeah.
here. 6-1.
6-1. Yeah. Anders Limpar show.
Flipping
That
heck.
was.
Oh my God, he was all over the place, chipping. He scored a hat trick, didn't he, that day?
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
He was wonderful. He was a wonderful player, and when he was on song, like unbelievable. That was lovely as well. Now, and you know what the average home gate was that year? I'll tell you what it was. I didn't count up. I looked it up. I didn't count
Would
it.
it be something like 29, 30,000 or something?
Very good. 30,600.
Yeah. It doesn't.
Oh
I
no,
mean.
sorry, that year. Sorry, I'm telling a lie. I'm looking at the right. I've got to put my glasses on now.
Okay.
Why haven't I got that somewhere? Wrote that down. Oh, 36,800.
Okay. A bit more
Title
then.
winning.
Okay. All right.
Title winning.
That's not too. But because didn't the stadium by that time probably what did it hold then? By then
42,
probably
43
40.
was
Yeah.
it?
Because I remember there was 54,000 in '88 in a League Cup match, and that was the last time there was over 50,000. And then the capacity had to be reduced, didn't it, because of Hillsborough? So actually, 36,000 doesn't sound too bad. And
Not too
also,
shabby, is it?
also in those days, it doesn't happen now, but in those days, if a game was televised on ITV, it did used to affect the crowd. I
It
will say
dropped.
that. Yeah,
But,
crowds would drop. You know.
I think, Al, they used to get a lot of money, more pro rata, the football clubs, when they
Yeah.
were showing a game on TV because their crowd would
Right.
drop.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was because of
Exactly.
that. That was the
Exactly.
reason. But the
Um,
next season, that was when our attendance was 30,600. Obviously,
right.
because our
Okay.
performances weren't that good. We
They
came
weren't that good. No.
fourth in the
No.
league. But we signed Ian Wright that season,
We did.
amazingly.
Yeah. What?
Who thought of that? I mean, he wasn't even in my mind. Sometimes you think, oh, I wish we had him. I wish we had him. I knew he was a good player, but I didn't concentrate on him at all. You're right. It's not as if you watch Crystal Palace every week.
Yeah.
You see him
I don't
score
think any of us
2
did.
goals in a cup final, I think, when he come on or something.
Yeah. Crystal Palace. That was amazing. That was
Yeah.
amazing because
And he
I
had
mean,
just come back
you
from
know,
a broken leg.
yeah. Yeah, because he didn't play in the semi-final, did he? That
No,
amazing semi-final. He didn't play in that, and then
no.
coming on as a sub and just, you know, he just announced himself. I mean, because he had, the thing about Ian Wright. I mean, it wasn't like that was his first game. He had been doing it regularly with Crystal Palace
Yeah.
in the old second division.
With
And
Mark Bright.
yeah, with Mark Bright, that's right, yeah. And they got promoted in the same year that we won the league because I can remember ITV showed highlights of because it was two-legged playoffs in those days. So he had been doing it had been doing it with Crystal Palace, but you just didn't think that he would ever become an Arsenal player. I remember Steve Coppell saying that he was surprised at the progress that Ian Wright had made since he'd signed him. Said, he was surprised that someone like him, particularly because he'd really come into professional football late as well. I mean, a funny
He
story
joined
about him.
us. I think he was 29 when he joined us, 28 or 29.
Oh, he could have been. Yeah, I mean, he came in as a pro at Palace at age 21 or 22, didn't he? I think,
Yeah,
which is
yeah,
late for a pro.
yeah.
I mean, I love that story he told on the BT documentary where he said that he'd been called for a trial to go to Crystal Palace, and he sort of got his boots, got all his gear, and sort of travelled up on the bus to Crystal Palace. Except that he didn't go to Selhurst Park. He went to the athletic stadium, and someone had to tell him, say, no, they don't play here. You want the football stadium. Oh, that's funny. A really, really funny story. Oh dear. But yeah, great character, great ambassador for our club.
Oh, phenomenal,
Did
phenomenal.
fantastic. Glad he got his title winners medal, even though at that time he was on his way out.
Yeah, that was. I
Won
mean,
the
he
cup
loved. You
with
could tell
us.
the in his. That was his. That was what he lived for. To
Yeah,
get a
he did.
title,
Yeah,
especially with the Arsenal. That
yeah,
is what he lived for. He was so happy because the effort he put in, he gave 100% every game.
yeah.
He didn't care. He was fabulous, fabulous.
Fabulous player.
He actually carried us certain games.
Yeah, without his goals, you'd have to wonder, wouldn't you? And
Yeah,
particularly that 94-95 season when George Graham ended up leaving,
yeah,
and we got to the Cup Winners' Cup final. But I mean, our team by then, it was very sort of functional and without those goals, we would. I mean, the semi-final against Sampdoria, he was electric that night, and then of course he got
yes,
booked
yeah.
and he missed the final. But you're right, Mel. Without his goals, we would have really suffered. And that, just looking at that East Stand picture, just reminds me of that lovely video when his old school teacher appears behind him next
Oh
to the East
my
Stand.
God, that is heartbreaking, isn't it?
Yeah, it just brings the house down, doesn't it? It just
Oh,
brings you to tears straight away. And
yeah. Oh my God,
yeah,
it's.
lovely, lovely moment, isn't it? There's
You
some
couldn't
pic.
plan that. The expression on his
Yeah,
face, you couldn't plan it. It was like, and he couldn't talk. He could not talk. Fantastic.
it's
Now,
speechless. Yeah,
I'll tell you what, that this season, well, one match in particular in this next season, 91-2, so special for me because it's the first game I ever took my son to, my eldest son, Jerome, who is a nutter Arsenal supporter. He lives, breathes, and drinks it and swims it and everything you want to do. And that was the first game. It's home to QPR, first game of the season. We were getting beat from an early goal. I think they scored it from a corner, QPR. And I think we scored in the last minute. Merson got a goal, get us out of trouble.
yeah, yeah.
But I took him up the stairs. I said, wait. I said, wait. I'll tell you when I come up the last few stairs. I went down my bit, the rows, and he came and I saw his face and he looked at the green grass for the first time in the
Yeah, yeah,
stadium. I'll never forget that look on his face. He might have
yeah.
been either about 7.
I would have
Then,
given the same look in 1981, just sort of just that gasp, just
just
looking
something
around.
special. So for me,
Yeah,
that game, it was one of the worst games I've seen. But for me, it was the most special game for me. Also, we beat Everton at home that year, 4-2. Ian Wright got all 4 goals.
yeah,
And
yeah,
Limpar made every one of them. He actually put them on a plate. He went, here, I'll just tap it in, would you please? So every 4 goals, amazing what Limpar did. And Wright, obviously, you get the end of it. I mean,
and Anders Limpar was let go too early, too early. Should have kept him for another few years. Did he stay around for the '93 Cup run, Limpar? I can't remember. Was he around still
I
then?
don't think he
Maybe left
did.
just
I
afterwards, or
don't think
maybe
he
he'd
did.
gone by then. But yeah, we
I
should have
don't
kept.
think he was. I don't think he was a George Graham favourite at the end. Though he was a
No, it
very good
wasn't.
player.
No, no, no. It's
I don't know why, but he was. You could tell he wasn't a. You knew that if he did have a bad game, you knew he wouldn't play for another 3 games. Where other
yeah.
players, you thought if they had a bad game, they'd be in next week. I might be a bit wrong there. I might be talking out of turn, but that's what I felt. I remember
It's
feeling
how
that at
it
the
felt.
time
Yeah,
because I loved
yeah,
Limpar.
yeah.
So I was
Just
probably
an
being a bit
extraordinary
biased, which I
player.
always
Yeah,
am. But
yeah. I mean, I think about. One goal I do remember with Limpar. I think it was the 89-90 season. That last multiple FA Cup tie we had with Leeds United before they sort of ended multiple replays, and he got this goal at Leeds United where he just got the ball and just took it from the halfway line and just sort of did this dribble and just sort of placed it in the corner. It was a lovely finish. And again, John Motson, I can hear him. Oh, he said Arsenal typically at a stroke are right back in it, and it's just. But Limpar was, it was just such a great player at that time in that team, which 89-90 was a bit of a letdown season after what had happened before, wasn't it?
yes, yeah, it was. Yeah, it was one of those seasons that you think, oh dear, can't we push on? But we never did.
You didn't
Also, a
know.
couple of games, obviously. Southampton away was Wrighty's first league game.
That's right.
Hat-trick.
Yeah, yeah. Another.
Last game had a fantastic hat trick, wasn't it?
Mm,
And then
yeah,
Rocky, And I never knew him and Rocky were friendly. I never knew they
Yeah, I
even
didn't know
knew
that till later on. Yeah, yeah,
exactly. But is it ironic that Rocky scored in that game as well? Can you imagine how they felt, the pair of them coming off the
yeah,
pitch? Two
yeah.
friends playing for their club, scoring in the same game. One of them's gone a hat trick in his first league game. Obviously, he played for Leicester in the League Cup just before that.
That's right. Yeah,
And
yeah.
also at the last game of the season, we played Southampton at home, and he was looking to get the Golden Boot, and he wasn't going to get it because I think Lineker was winning it, and it was the last couple of minutes. He got 2 goals.
And he got it. Yeah.
He got the goal. I remember one. He literally kicked it out. Look, he can kick it out, but he got it out of Seaman's hands and run the length of the pitch and scored.
He just scored. Yeah, yeah. I wasn't at the game, but I do
one way
remember.
the other way and pushed it in.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. But yeah, Gary missed out on the Golden Boot because of right.
What a shame.
I bet he reminds him of that all the time. I wouldn't be surprised when they're working together on Match of the Day.
Yeah. Also, a disappointment though, Al. I don't know if you went to it when we played Benfica at home in the. Was it the European or the
I remember watching it on telly because I'd gone to university by then, and so that was a time I started missing games. But I watched it on the telly. We were wearing yellow that night, weren't we? Because in those days, UEFA had a rule that if there was a colour clash, the home team had to wear their away kit. And I think weren't we winning 2-1, and then Benfica just sort of ran away with it in the second half. Didn't they have a player called?
We went. It was 0-0, I think, away at Benfica, so we were favourites.
At their place, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Years ago, home made a big difference. Years ago,
it did.
Bigger than now, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
And we got them back to Highbury. I think we went 1-0 up.
Yeah. We were definitely.
Then they scored a goal near the end, take it to extra time. Then I don't know if they brought them on, but they had 2 Russians in their team.
Yeah.
Who tore us a new one in extra time. They looked electric. And one of them, or 2 of them, and most certainly one went to Millwall, funnily enough, after that. One of the Russians, but they beat us 3-1 after extra time. That was so disappointing.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, they just ran away with it at the end, didn't they?
And we actually afflicted one of the worst defeats on Liverpool that I can remember. We beat them 4-0.
Yeah, I was definitely at that game. It was quite a sunny day, as I remember. Yeah, that chip over the. It was Mike Hooper in goal.
That's it, Mike Hooper. That's it.
Wasn't Robert?
Yeah. Mike Hooper. And also that was the season, and the season before I hadn't mentioned, but in the 1991 season, he made his debut was David Hillier.
Yes,
he really played well for us. He did a fantastic job, and he scored that Liverpool game as well.
He did. Yeah,
he might have got the opener. He might have got the opener.
Wasn't it the ball come across and he hit it? He just whacked it first time and it flew in. Yeah, I do remember that.
It might be the first goal. I don't remember that, but I'll tell you what happened. The difference was we let in 47 goals that year. I don't know what happened. From 18 to 47 now, that is like, what's going on?
Yeah, it just don't make sense, does it?
Our average home game, as I said before, was 30,600. Ian Wright scored 26 goals for us that year, 24 in the league. I mean, that's amazing.
And wasn't that the season was that 91, 92? That was the season we went out the cup, wasn't it? Wrexham?
That was a Wrexham one, yeah. I was going to mention that.
Yeah. Did Ian Wright play? I don't remember him playing in that
game. I don't remember him playing in that game.
I don't remember him playing.
Did Jimmy Carter play in that game? Was that a Jimmy Carter game? I think he might have played. I think he might have scored a goal at the end. Yeah. They disallowed it. I think the VAR disallowed it, Al.
Yeah.
Near the end. It's one of those VAR decisions.
Do you know that another remarkable thing about that cup tie was on Match of the Day in the evening, they handed over to Jimmy Hill, and Jimmy Hill actually said, "There's my money back," because he'd actually backed Arsenal to win, and Jimmy Hill had also felt that the free kick that led to Mickey Thomas shooting and scoring wasn't a free kick because he thought that it wasn't, because O'Leary I think was penalised, was he? And he didn't think it was a foul. But yeah, no, fair play. I mean, Wrexham. I mean, they I suppose they got what they deserved on that day, didn't they? But
yeah.
We lived to fight another day, didn't we, Melv?
We did. We went on an amazing cup after that.
I don't think we hardly lost a game after that, did we?
Yeah, no. Yeah. He's right. That's the one we're talking about with Ian Wright's hat trick.
Yeah.
Wrexham. Don't talk about it. Don't talk anymore about it. This one here.
The game with Sheffield Wednesday at home, 1-0 down, 1-7, 1-6 goals in about 20 minutes.
I don't remember that.
No, I don't either. Must admit, I don't remember.
You're beating us up.
Oh, I don't think I was there. when we lost to Chelsea, they charged us £8. We were disgusted. Yeah,
Well,
is he
funny you
talk?
say that, Larky, because I've got it on a bit of paper, but to sit upstairs, a reserve seat that season or the season before, I'm not sure, was £8. So that was on the
Wow.
best Arsenal seats, was £8.
Yeah,
That's the
yeah,
best.
yeah.
Now I'm going to go and find a bit here, see if I can find it. Yeah, just going looking at a few programs of that era.
Yeah.
How they, bring back memories of what they used to look like. Now that, I don't know if you can see that. How that's a league table they used to show us.
Yeah.
Attendance. See if I can blow that up a bit.
The average attendance, yeah. Gosh,
Man United got 44,000.
44, yeah, because I think their stadium was probably just over 50 then, was it? Or
Yeah.
it might have reduced after Hillsborough. May have been 48. Because to be fair, Man United always got at least 40,000 even back
Oh
then,
yeah.
didn't they?
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, the top goal scorer at that time of the season was McClare of Man United and Hughes. They were the top two
Jockey,
goal scorers.
Jockey McClare, yes.
That's all the bust up was about, wasn't it? Really.
Yeah, Nigel Winterburn and Brian McClare. Yeah, that was that was funny. That was quite. I wasn't there, but that cup tie, because I think I had to work. That's when I was working in a shop to sort of get some extra pennies. But yeah, the FA Cup tie where I think we won, was it 2-1 or 2-0, and Man United missed a penalty, and
That's in
Nigel
the last
Winterburn
minute.
went up to
I was
McClare.
there.
Yeah,
Went and give it the old. So it's all kicked off. Now this, I don't know if you can
hilarious.
see that. That is a letter in the Coventry programme
Gosh, yeah.
advertising the bond.
The Arsenal bond, yeah. George Graham did an advert, didn't he? Or wasn't it at the end of one of the videos where he advertised it? You know,
Yeah.
with the old VHS.
Oh yeah, yeah. Now if I do that now, does it make it bigger or not? No.
No,
Oh,
you
it
need
does
to
it only
blow
a
it
bit
up
on
a
my
bit
screen.
more,
All
just
right.
a bit more.
That's all I can. No, that's
No,
it.
don't worry,
No, I
don't
can't
worry.
do it.
But I can see where it says the Arsenal bond. Yeah, there was, I mean, there was outrage about it, wasn't there, from some of the fans? I know that West Ham tried something like that a year or two later, and their fans just weren't having it at all, to the point where people were just running on the pitch trying to stop the matches.
What's this? Just another comment here. Alan Smith.
Oh wow! Oh, this
That's
must
all
be
the goal scorers.
the 7-1 game. Gosh.
Wow. I don't remember that. I'm definitely losing it.
Yeah.
Now,
No, I don't remember. Gary Lawrence will remember it straight away. He would probably remember everything that happened in that game.
I mean, yeah, he's brilliant. He's brilliant.
Yeah, he's a
Absolutely
good guy,
brilliant.
Gary.
What else we got here?
Is that the bond price? Is 900 and 1,100 quid?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this is the common. This is what the. I think they used to have. They changed it. In these days, there was a different cover every game.
That's right. Yeah.
Years ago, they used to have the same cover.
Same cover. Yeah. Yeah.
Old programs up there, they were the same ones every game for the whole season. Used to change it every season if you were lucky.
That's
so
right,
that was that. Now, let's look at some the teams, the Coventry teams I got out. Let's see if I can.
Kenny Sansom playing for Coventry. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll tell you who I remember. Obviously, the goalkeeper, I can't say his name.
Grizovic. Yeah. He used to be at Liverpool, didn't he, once upon a time?
That's right. He was well reserved, wasn't he, really?
Yeah. Under Clements, yeah.
I remember Brian Burrows. I remember him. Obviously, Sanson. I remember Trevor Peake.
Yeah.
Mickey Ginn, I remember. He was Coventry from the little geezer. He was Coventry.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he was part of him, Peake, Ogrizovic, and Regis. They were all part of the FA Cup winning team, weren't they?
Yes, Regis was a fantastic footballer.
Yeah, legend.
Kevin, amazing. He was so strong and fast.
Did he go to Blackburn and win the league at Blackburn? Kevin Gallagher.
Gallagher did, yeah.
Yeah, he did, didn't he?
Yeah. And then look at our team: Seaman, Dixon, Winterburn, Hillier, Bold, Adam. That's not a bad team, is it?
Yeah.
They're all decent footballers there, aren't they?
Dickie Bowe, Kevin Campbell, Paul Davis, obviously, fantastic player. Alan Smith, Paul Merson, Anders.
I wonder we won the league that year.
Yeah. Fantastic team. Solid back four.
Oh, yeah.
Just didn't really give much away at all.
And that's without O'Leary.
Yeah. I mean, David O'Leary at that time sort of came in. Sometimes he came in and played, if I remember rightly, he came in and played sweeper or maybe as a third centre half. And he stayed at the team. He was still a fixture in the team a couple of years later because he played his last game was the FA Cup final against Sheffield Wednesday. So
that's it. Yeah, so he played for years, didn't he? This is the Man United team. Les Seeley in goal. I think he came from West Ham, didn't he? Les Seeley. He used to do it at West Ham.
Yeah. Well, I know he played at Luton for a while, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. Yeah,
but yeah, I know he did go to. He might have gone to West Ham after Man United. I can't remember.
Mike Phelan, he was the coach, wasn't he, at the time?
Yeah, he became coach. Yeah. He was a midfielder. Because at that time, Fergie had a few players that that could do the work. They weren't the sort of Phelan, for example, not exactly a fantastically flair player, but could do the job in midfield. He obviously had the two centre halves, Bruce and Pallister, who ended up winning the league with them. Neil Webb was decent midfield player.
He come from Forest, didn't he? They bought him from Forest.
That's right, bought him from Forest. Yeah, I don't think he was around by the time they started winning the league.
No,
though,
he wasn't. No.
Whereas Paul Ince and Brian McClare were. Hughes was. Danny Wallace, he was part of the team that won the cup. He might have been there when they won the League Cup the year after.
Brothers, didn't he?
Yeah, Ray and Danny. Danny won the league at Leeds.
Rod, I think it was a Rod Wallace, wasn't there?
Yeah, Rob Wallace. Yeah. Sorry, Rob Wallace won the league at Leeds, and there was Ray Wallace. Weren't they the first three brothers to play together at Southampton?
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
That Wallace you're talking about there, he scored in that game that we got beat 6-2, and he scored the last goal, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, should mention Dennis Irwin in that team. He was a good fullback for Man United.
He was right-footed but played left back.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, he must be manager of a month or something. George Ram, looking very dapper as always.
Gorgeous George. Yeah.
Gorgeous George. Did like to wear did look good, didn't he? Did look good, George.
Yeah. I'll tell you what. Well, one funny story. I remember being on the steps of the town hall, and he was coming out, and all the fans started cheering and doing what fans do and wanted to touch him and all that. And he got a bit cross, did George? I'll tell you.
Leave my suit alone.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he didn't like anyone ruffling up his suit or moving his tie. But yeah, no, it was a great manager for us. And I know, obviously, it didn't end well for him, but he gave Arsenal their pride back in that from the mid '80s up until the sort of early '90s. Having not competed in the league title for so long, to then sort of build a team, and also to build a team not really spending little money.
Peanuts.
Yeah. Fantastic.
I've been lucky enough to be in his company a couple of times, and he's very, very, very impressive guy.
Yeah,
very impressive guy. And he was saying how he got all the, how he got Lee Dixon he found and Winterburn he knew about, but it was Lee Dixon and Steve Bold were lower division players, and he explained to us, and it wasn't just me, it was a few friends, how he sourced those players. It was just brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant, very clever. He was ahead of his time, definitely. Yeah. Now this is something I'm going to read. This is quite. Here we are. If you're interested, you want to buy a watch, Al, let me know.
Yeah, to see that. Yeah, gosh.
Just let me know.
Stuff that they used to sell. Fantastic.
This is a whole page to sell a couple of watches. And it says, due to public demand. These watches, all right? A stylish, accurate watch, well, that helps. That represents great value for money. Waterproof, up to 3 atmospheres. I only like up to 2 atmospheres normally, but if it's got 3 atmospheres, I'll definitely take one.
It's funny seeing that the world of sport was open by then. The big shot there at Finsbury Park at that time. Yeah. That was a massive that was such a big improvement from what they had at the ground. It was phenomenal. Whereas now that would be quite sort of an average sized souvenir shop, wouldn't it? Club shop.
Yeah. But it was the big thing, wasn't it? It was enormous.
Yeah.
The funny thing is, this watch is guaranteed for a year, right? And the child's watch, it says, is guaranteed only for 6 months. Children, live longer than adults, so they should be the other way around.
Well, maybe we would have just sort of counted on the fact that sometimes kids accidentally break things.
Yeah, it could be something like that, couldn't it? Anyway, in the nice
Yeah.
old colours and
But, you know,
blue.
the colours, yeah, blue and yellow, white and red and white.
I don't know
Yeah.
why I never bought one of those. I've got no idea why I never bought one of those. So that was funny. What you used to get, you used to get a load of adverts in the old programme years ago. There was no
Yeah. JVC used to carry a lot. I know that much.
Yeah, hell of a lot. That's the Benfica cover.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Campbell, one of the
yeah.
great.
I never had the shirt because to this day I've never really been fond. Well, no, really about it. I'm not fond of that shirt. The shorts I did have. I bought the shorts separately because that wasn't that the first season that they started wearing longer shorts. I'm sure it was because
Oh, was it?
I'm
I
sure
don't
the
know. I
season
didn't know that.
before
Al. No.
the shorts were quite tight, you know, and short. Though I'm sure that was the first season that the longer shorts started coming in vogue. So
Right.
yeah, I definitely had a pair of those.
I've got a tough question for you that I didn't know the answer until I fell upon it, going doing a bit of research. Who was the manager of Benfica when they beat us that season?
Gosh, it's going to be somebody really.
I never
Hang on.
knew, and it was like I went, "What?" When I just happened to hit me, I went, "What? Really? I've got to put this in."
The Benfica manager when they won that game.
Shall I put you out of your misery?
Give me a clue. Oh, don't give me a clue. No, don't give me
I'll
a
give
clue
you a clue.
because that's cheating, isn't it?
How do I give you a clue?
It wasn't someone like Ranieri, was it?
No, but you're on the right lines.
Is it an Italian? You're going to tell me it's an Italian?
No, he's not Italian. No, sorry, he's
No,
not Italian.
no. Oh gosh.
I'll give you a very big clue. He managed England.
He managed England. You're not Fabio Capello.
No.
No. Oh, hang on. I know it was now. I know it
Go
was.
on.
It was Ericsson, wasn't it?
Brilliant.
Ericsson. Yep. Ericsson.
There we are.
Yep. Ericsson.
I never knew that until.
Göran Ericsson. I mean, if I must admit, I'd forgotten. I'd completely forgotten. Yeah.
So I didn't know. Not at all.
Didn't they have a really good player called Uran who was really pretty?
Yeah, that was the one. The Russian. That was one of the Russians.
Yeah, Uran. Yeah, I remember Uran. He was electric. I know Graham thought quite highly of him because I remember he mentioned.
I thought we were going to buy him actually after that performance.
Yeah, there were. Yeah, I'm glad you said that because I thought there were some rumours about him at the time, and yeah, I do remember we tried to sign him. Yeah, looking at the Everton team against us there. Arsenal team still large in his name, but Everton, yeah, Peter Beardsley's gone over to the. Gosh, Robert Wajika, I'd forgotten about him. Didn't he used to play for Rangers?
I can't remember that.
I remember him being up in Scotland.
Mo Johnson played for Rangers and Celtic.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, Mo Johnson, very good striker.
Peter Beardsley used to do that funny thing, somersault, when he scored a goal, didn't he? Or
that's
something?
right. Yeah. He did a lot of. He was a decent player. He did a lot of punditry on Sky for a while, but I think they let him go after something had happened. But
Tony Cottee, you really signed him.
Tony Cottee, yeah,
he
number
chose Everton over us.
Yeah, and similarly like Kerry Dixon, we tried to sign him, and he didn't come to us, did he?
No, Martin Keown, look at that.
Yeah, I remember him being there alongside. Was he playing in a centre half then, or was he in midfield? Because didn't he play midfield occasionally? Didn't he?
Did he? I didn't
like
know
a holding midfield player from time to time.
I didn't know that.
But no, I could. Well,
and I'll tell you, wasn't he great, Neville Southall?
Yeah, fantastic. One of the best goalkeepers I've ever seen. And
yeah,
Everton through and through.
Now these phone numbers. What are these phone numbers for, Al?
Will one of them be for like club call or something?
Yeah,
and then it'll be the commercial marketing number. Arsenal World of Sport.
Someone says commercial. I can see. Yeah.
And then there'd be one for the shop that was on the ground, which
probably in those days. I don't want to be too nasty out. In those days, they probably picked up the phone.
Yeah.
No, we can't complain. We can't complain.
No. I just looking at that team. What happened to John Ebrell? Gosh.
Oh, yeah.
I remember them talking about him being sort of, sort of the future for not just for Everton but for England. But
yeah. Well, that happens sometimes, doesn't it?
No, that's right. Yeah, Hinchcliffe obviously does a lot of stuff with Sky punditry. So yeah, I mean Everton, they were going through transition as well, weren't they? Because I remember we beat them in the League Cup semi-final. Somebody reminded me of that today. I think it's
Gary
their
Groves
anniversary.
got the winner away, didn't he?
That's right. Yeah. Oh, can you still hear me? I thought
Yeah,
I
of course can. No
right.
problem. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, and then we beat them at High. I know we murdered them at Highbury, but they were the defending champions. Everton. They'd won the league the season before. But that was after um, Colin Harvey had become the manager, and if the truth be told, they'd lost something when Kendall had left them, and they started going through a big period of transition. Everton, didn't they?
That's right. They were very good there before that. Excellent. Ericsson was also the manager of Gothenburg. He knows some
Yeah,
stuff.
I knew that. Yep, yep,
Doing all right.
yep.
Well done,
I knew
mate.
that. Was
Never
he
knew
was
that.
manager of Gothenburg when they beat Dundee United in the final? I think
What's
in the
this? I have
UEFA
a
Cup
long
final.
sleeve bruised banana shirt. Still
Still
fits.
fit.
Yeah, but does it fit like you want it to fit, Lowski, eh? I want to know, does it fit or does it just fit over one arm? That's the difference, isn't it?
No, it's not. Never. Yeah, I can't pretend. I mean, I'm all for this whole retro thing, and they sold them the special edition. Fine, if it makes money for the club and gets people reminiscing, fine. But I'd never like that shirt. Sorry.
Right, now what I'm going to finish on, if I can find it, if I can read my own writing, which I can't do normally. I've got it printed, so we'll do it right tonight. In 1991, which is the middle year of our two seasons, take you back to memory lane about what was going on in the world. This is the year that Lech Walesa was elected as the Polish president.
Yes.
That was a
Yes.
good thing.
Yeah.
The
Bearing
Dow
in
Jones,
mind that he'd led a strike sort of 10, 11
that's
years
it. He was
before that. Yeah.
strikeaholic, wasn't he? He was
Yeah.
strikeaholic.
Solidarity and
Oh, look
you
at
know.
this. I know I've just printed this off. I've copied and pasted it. And I did look at most of it, but I forgot this. Freddie Mercury died from AIDS in 1991.
That's right. Yeah. Was
So
it sort of
long ago. Can't
November,
be.
November, December time, wasn't it? And then I think
Wow.
Bohemian Rhapsody ended
Wow.
up being the Christmas #1 that year.
Unbelievable. Oh, South Africa apartheid was dismantled.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep, I remember that. Terry Waite and Terry Anderson were released from
Yeah. Yeah. And John McCarthy as well, I think.
that's it. Robert Maxwell was found dead floating in the sea. Remember that?
Yeah. Remember that. Yeah.
Boris Yeltsin won the first free election for Russia when the USSR was split up.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
Indian Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi is assassinated. Bloody hell.
Yeah, and the thing I remember about that was I think there was a warning because I think if it was not earlier in the year, maybe it was the year before that, he was doing an inspection and somebody had attacked him, hadn't they? And they managed to get the culprit off of him. But yeah, I do remember that well.
I'd say we had as well, Al. We had the Lockerbie bombing.
Okay, was that 88?
No, this is all 91.
Or 91 was it? Oh, okay. Yeah.
The Dow Jones average top 3,000 for the first time. It's now 33,000. The Dow Jones.
Wow.
Mike Tyson is arrested and charged with raping Desiree Washington. Wasn't that his wife or not? Or someone else?
No, some lady that he'd met, wasn't it? Yeah.
What else was going on? The internet is made available to unrestricted commercial use on a number of computers on the net, and it reaches 1 million people. The internet.
Wow.
Yeah.
The first time I
Well,
used the internet, I think was about 1994. I used it at uni.
can't remember when I first used it.
Yeah,
Oh, I did when my son was born. We got a PC and wasn't very successful. It used to have to warm up, didn't it? The internet years ago.
That's right. Yeah, the old dial-up. Yeah, long
That's it,
before
dial-up.
broadband.
That's it. Oh my
Yeah.
god. Anyway, this is the films that were popular. May not have come out that year, but they were popular that year. There was Terminator 2, Judgment Day, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves,
Yeah,
Silence of the
that.
Lambs. Oh, I remember that one. Oh, that was scary. Sleeping with the Enemy, Beauty and the Beast, Thelma and Louise. I remember that one.
Good film. Very good film. And certain Brad Pitt was in that, wasn't it? It was probably his first big film. He'd been in Dallas, hadn't he?
He was
had a
in
small
Thelma and
part.
Louise, was he?
Yeah, he was. Yeah,
I can't remember that.
he was the guy they met along the way, as I remember rightly.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I'm sure that's true. You might want to correct that. You might want to check that. Sorry.
I'll tell you who was big in the bands and the pop music at that time was Whitney Houston.
Yeah,
I saw the film the other week
phenomenal.
about her life. God, so sad. Didn't
Yeah,
realise things about her.
I've not
Didn't
seen
realise.
that. Yeah, the girl that plays as England is a Brit, so
That's right. She's
apparently does a very
amazing.
good job. Yeah,
Though she doesn't look like her, because
mm,
she was a one-off Whitney Houston how she looked. She was beautiful,
yeah,
amazing.
yeah, yeah,
But the actual acting and all that is phenomenal. She's
yeah.
really, really good. Michael Jackson was big then, Queen, and then near at home, Erasure, Marillion, Phil Collins. I used to love Phil Collins.
You know, you mentioned Robin Hood. Wasn't there that big hit from Brian Adams
Yeah, everything I do.
yeah, that was number one for
Ages,
many
wasn't
many weeks, wasn't it? I think it was the
it? Yeah.
longest. I think it's still the longest number one, wasn't it? 18 weeks or something.
Something silly like that, yeah.
Yeah,
U2 was big then, Janet Jackson, REM, people like that. Anyway, that was going back 1991, but
yeah,
we've touched on so many games tonight
indeed.
now, so many
Brad
great memories.
Brad Pitt was in Thelma and Louise, by the way. I've just
Was
checked
he?
it. Yeah, one of
God,
his
I
first
didn't know
films. Yeah,
that. Didn't know
yeah.
that. I was looking at the girls, funnily enough, probably then, so that's why I didn't notice Brad Pitt. I thought probably when I was watching the film now and I saw Brad Pitt on the screen, I probably thought I was looking at a mirror. That's why I didn't
No,
recognise him
no,
now.
that's not one I could get away with, Mel.
That's why I probably thought, oh my god, yeah, I have got bad eyesight though. I must tell you that. As you can tell. Anyway, listen, we're gonna wrap up now. It's absolutely
Oh, what
fantastic.
a pleasure! Really, just
No,
really good talking about all
thank
those
you, thank
games and
you, thank you.
memories, and it's funny because we've got quite similar memories. I know you started going probably a little bit before me, without sort of referring to your age or anything. But it's funny, we've been to lots of the same games and have the same memories and been through the
Yeah,
same emotions. It's just fantastic. It's a great club, and I mean, I just remember something still sticks in my brain that I think it was Jack Kelsey said. Everything was just first class with the Arsenal. Everything was just first class, and it is. It's still like that to this day,
yes.
and lucky not just to support a great club, but so many great people that follow it as well. I know we sometimes have a moan about Arsenal Twitter, but there are some really fantastic people that
Oh,
follow that club, and they
I've
are
met
proper football people as well.
over the years. I've met some fantastic people. Obviously, I've been going for years, but also the last few years on Twitter, I've met some fabulous. And also doing this program, I've had you're the 14th. No, you're more than the 14th. I've had doubles on certain weeks, only on a few. But of all the people, some of them, 50%, I've never spoken to before. And they're such lovely
Yeah,
people. You
yeah,
think this is my type of people. It's just
yeah.
perfect. It's just click straight away. The show just goes, and it's
Mm.
like, oh, we've got to stop now because I don't want to make it draw it out too long. You know what I mean? I want someone. So if someone said put the thing up 3 hours, you're not going to make up watch it. Something for an hour and 20 or
Yeah.
something. It's just about right. So I'm really met people that I will be keeping in touch with. They probably won't want to keep in touch with me, Al. But I'll be
Oh, that's not true. That's not true, Melv. I'm sure they will. I'm sure they will. But
no,
yeah, I mean, and also the other thing I will say is that through the power of Twitter, through the power of Arsenal, I've been reacquainted with friends that I kind of lost touch with over the years. I mean, Nancy Wright, Gary Wright, aka the Earl of Woodford. I got back in touch with them through Twitter and through football. I mean, I went with them to the League Cup final in 1993. That's how far back we go.
do you
Um,
actually know Nancy, right?
yes, Nancy. Yes, Nancy. She's a real
I speak
character.
to her. I mean, I put something on Twitter. She might say something or
Yeah,
vice
yeah.
versa, but I've
No,
never met her.
she's
What a
she's a
great
real
character she
character.
forms.
Real proper Arsenal fan,
Yeah,
and yeah. So but I'd lost touch with them, through me going to union, moving, and all the
yeah,
rest of it. So it's great to get back in touch with her. And yeah, I mean, and still going to the games and meeting old friends, new people. Um, Charlie George is still working there, isn't he? Still doing the
yeah.
tours, bless him.
One of
Yeah.
my heroes,
Yeah,
Charlie.
yeah.
Amazing.
Did you well back? There was a time when I used to go to away matches with Charlie through mutual friends of ours, and that's how I got to know him. And yeah, I mean the club is in his blood really still to this day. Bless him.
Fabulous person. Fabulous. I've
Yeah,
been lucky to
yeah, yeah.
meet him as well. Fabulous person. fabulous. And he's, as you say, he is Arsenal through and through, isn't he? He was
Absolutely.
when we won the double. I mean, there was some. I mean, every footballer was a hero in my day when we won the double. You know, I was about 16 at the time, but he was like he was different for some reason. He had that flair. The first real, I would say, flair footballer that I saw. He was another similar. I mean, remember Rodney Marsh was a flair player. He was to that type of ilk, if you know. He was fantastic. Anyway, there we go. All right, whereabouts do you sit at the Emirates?
I am in the East Stand, block 110.
110 and 112.
Yes. Are you really? Well, we'll have to
Honestly,
bump into each other again soon.
We will.
Yeah.
Recognise his
Tomorrow
face
might be a
out.
bit
I'd
tricky.
like to see you tomorrow night.
Yeah. Oh, I'm not going to forget your face now, Melv, am I? I'm not going to. The Brad Pitt lookalike.
Exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, I'm sure we'll bump into each other. Evening games can be a bit tricky because I'm sort of a bit of a get there just before kick-off and leave straight up. But certainly at a weekend match, I'm sure I will see you over there soon.
Great. I look forward to that. All right, listen, thanks again. Really appreciate
Thanks,
it. It
Mel.
was good, as I thought it
over
might
and over
be.
and over again, onwards and upwards of it, mate. What a fantastic show. Been a pleasure being on.
Speak to you soon. Keep well out. All the best. Bye.
And you too, mate. Cheers. Bye.